Hello, photographers. I recently got a chance to go out and shoot a really cool place. I really enjoyed this shoot. It is the historic La Purísima Mission out near Lompoc, California. This place is very authentic. It was rebuilt after being trashed over the years by the CCC in 1933, and these guys really just did their best to make it as authentic and original as possible. Basically, all that was left at the time were these large pillars and kind of an outline of the structure. But they did a really, really good job just making it feel, making it's just adobe. So it has a very, very old feel to it. And the park is, it's not like a normal mission. It's kind of set back away. And it's not ornate and designed to be touristy. It's very original and authentic, and out of the way. So touring these rooms was just a lot of fun. You can see I love shooting old things. Who doesn't? And I found this composition. I was what did I bring? My 12 to 35 and 35 to 100. My camera and a bag. So there were no tripods or flashes or anything like that. And I came across this scene, which is very high. It's a very dynamic scene. What I mean by dynamics, if you're not familiar with the term, is that you have shadows in an area and you have highlights in an area. The paradox with a modern camera, with any sensor, is that you cannot expose for highlights and shadows really in one image, not to this extent. There is a threshold, but not like this. So I'm going to sacrifice either the shadows indoors or the highlights and the detail that you don't see really outside here, unless I were to shoot it in some other way. And that fashion would be basically bracketing. If you haven't heard of bracketing, we can discuss that really quick. Most cameras can bracket. Not sure if yours does. But in a sense, bracketing is just shooting a series of pictures, one from overexposed slightly all the way down to maybe a stop or two underexposed. You can see that as we move from left or right to left, the further underexposed we get, the better the outdoors looks. On 719 here, the outdoors starts to look really good. You regain your color and the saturation in the trees, and it starts to look, you get your detail in the bricks here, and it starts to look really good. But the indoors doesn't. If you go back, indoors looks really nice, plenty of headroom to do what you want, but the outdoors, you can't really work with that. And what's going to happen if you do try to work with this is you're just going to end up with any other blown out picture. You're going to try to reduce your exposure in this area to bring back detail, and it's just going to start looking like a big burn spot. So I'll spare you the example of doing that here. We won't waste your time. So what you need to do is you have to, DxO is not going to do this for you. You're going to want to use a program like Affinity or perhaps Photoshop, and you're going to go in there and do an HDR Merge. So basically you go a new HDR Merge in Affinity, and Photoshop's very similar. Make sure you have automatically align images. I shot the images handheld. It just goes really quick. Snip, 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 snip. So that was just a handheld, but the auto align will ensure that everything is lined up perfectly and you don't end up with some kind of artifacts in your image. I've already done it, but basically it's easy. You just add, and we'll just pick the images we want here, which would be 18 through 23. And it will take all those images and map them out and align them, and you will end up with a master, not there, excuse me, you will end up with a master TIFF. I'll just export a TIFF from that file. And this is the TIFF that was run off from all 6 of those images. So all 6 of those images were merged into one master file, and now look at all the headroom we have. You can tell we have this headroom because much more dynamic headroom is because you can already begin to see the details in the outdoors. You can now see the details in the tree. By the way, this has been converted to black and white because I want it to be a monochrome. But if we just added the color, you can now see the detail in the trees, and everything's starting to take shape. So we have plenty of dynamic headroom to mess with this image now. I'll show you. If we go to Control, I'm going to just get rid of that and get rid of that. But if we go to our controls here, we can just select this area. And we'll just bring down the exposure, just an example. And as you see, you can bring it down a bit. Look at that. All of a sudden we have nice detail outdoors. So what ends up happening, you know, honestly, I wouldn't necessarily use DxO for this particular application. I believe when I did mine, I used Luminar and just used the dodge and burn, and it just gave me a bit more control on what I want, what I wanted to bring the exposure down on the outdoors. And anyways, in the end, once you're done in post, you can end up with something like this end product, monochrome, and you can see I have a nice contrasty outdoors and a nice contrasty indoors for a very old looking kind of contrasty picture. Try to add a lot of drama and make it look as authentic as possible.